Hey everybody, it's Jason from the Texas Gun Vault 2, and we're back out here in the garage for another episode of Garage Gun Talk, where we just talk about things in the gun world, what's going on. And right now, I actually think there's a lot to talk about. So there's two things on the agenda that I want to get your thoughts and opinions on. The first one I had no idea was even a story. I guess there was a convention called GunCon, which took place in Cleveland, and I guess it's hosted by the Gun Collective and John Patton. And I only discovered about this because the Wyoming Gun Project made a video today, a very impassioned video. And I've also seen a few things kind of floating around on Instagram, and I really didn't understand what was happening because I don't follow the Gun Collective. Maybe that's a YouTube channel you guys follow. When they first started, I did follow them, and I used to enjoy the information that they gave, but I kind of felt like it became very, I don't want to say programmatic, that's probably not the right word. It became very commercialized. That's the way I looked at it. So I kind of felt like the Gun Collective started off as kind of a grassroots channel of people that were trying to create high quality content regarding legal issues in the gun world and kind of new gun stuff. It was kind of like a gun news program. And as they grew, which I'm happy for them, might not be my cup of tea, I kind of felt like they began to become so commercialized between sponsors and what they were doing that it didn't interest me anymore. It went away from what they were and why I was attracted to them in the beginning. It's kind of like my feelings about Hickok 45, where when I first started watching Hickok 45, he probably had 100,000 subscribers. And we're talking like, 2013. I mean, way early on. I remember the very first time, and I remember who told me. He said, there's a guy on YouTube that can make I forgot what it was, like a 250-yard shot with a 1911. Go check this out. And I went and checked it out. And he had this very kind demeanor. He kind of felt like your grandpa, had some cool land, and he was shooting at targets on the side of a hill. And I personally love the mountains of Tennessee, and that's where he lives. And it kind of felt like a cool community. It was just average gun guys hanging out and talking guns, and then it became big and huge, and I kind of felt like he strayed away from what attracted me to his channel, and so I unsubscribed there. The Gun Collective was the same way. But if you guys enjoy that content, totally fine, just not for me, and I just don't enjoy it. But anyway, I guess the channel had gotten big enough where I guess in the past few years he had been hosting this thing called GunCon, which is like a gun convention. And it's my understanding that the past few years they've had it held in Iowa at Brownell's location. And for some reason this year they chose Cleveland. And I guess there was a lot of anti-gun shenanigans between the people that owned the facility they held it in and shop owners and people getting escorted off the property because they were politicians. I don't know what it was. And I don't know. It seems to be like a big brouhaha. In general, it doesn't matter if it's guns or music, my other career, I really don't like conventions. I am so introverted. I'll go to them if I have to, or if, like, for example, in the music world, if an ensemble that I'm playing with is presenting at one or performing at one. In fact, it's kind of funny. I'm actually performing next week at the International Clarinet Association Festival, but I'm just part of an organization that's accompanying people playing clarinet and bass clarinet concertos. I know, it's crazy. I'm that much of a geek. But that's what I'm doing next week. But normally I just don't go to conventions because I can't stand the people. So I know that I'll never get invited to a big convention. And if I probably was, especially if I was supposed to be on a panel or something, I'd probably turn it down. Most likely I would. But I don't think my channel will ever get asked to do anything like that because I don't play the game. I don't do the highly polished videos and so forth. But I guess getting back to the original story is this big thing with GunCon, and everyone is blaming John Patton, and everyone's blaming the Gun Collective and the poor planning. And I'm just curious what any of you think about it, if you've even heard about it. I think if I was a betting man, I would say most of you that follow my channel probably hadn't even heard of it. But if you're interested and you kind of follow all the drama of the gun world, maybe you should go check it out. Go find some other channels that are talking about it, and go check out the Wyoming Gun Project. And I know I've plugged his channel a bunch in the recent past, but I always find myself watching his stuff because I feel like he's like me and my channel, but he focuses on different things that I completely miss. So he like fills me in on all this stuff. It's awesome, and he's really passionate about what he talks about, but it's not drama, it's not over the top, stuff. And there's my dogs again. You guys know they always bark every time I'm out here in the garage making a video. But anyway, the GunCon thing. So tell me what you know or think about any of that drama, because I actually had one person comment on one of my previous videos asking me what I thought. It was this morning. And that's also, and I was like, I have no idea what's going on because I don't follow that. I don't really follow a lot of gun channels anymore. I actually went through them all to see if I'm still subscribed to them. And for the most part, I am. And a lot of them don't even post much anymore. Like Small Arms Solution hasn't made a video in 3 months. And I know the Military Arms channel posted something like 4 days ago, but very sporadic. I am very happy with my production schedule in that I release 2 videos a week that deal with guns, and often a video that's a product review. So I feel like I'm putting out more content than many of the big channels. So I'm happy with that. I'm kind of beating them in that way. But anyway, let me know what you think about GunCon and all the drama. If you like to talk about the drama, I really don't care either way because I wasn't involved in it and didn't even know it happened. But now, let's talk about my predictions. And you guys know every time I have predictions, they often come true. And I also always have to come here and say, I told you so, I was right. Now, tonight's prediction is regarding the future of the NFA, since the part of the bill that would have removed suppressors, SBRs, and SBSs, and AOWs from the big, beautiful bill was removed, as I suspected it would. But the tax is going to be reduced to 0. The parliamentarian, which the Senate just voluntarily follows, they don't have to follow their recommendations, has approved the 0 tax change to the NFA tax on certain items. So what does this mean? Okay. Some people are saying that we should take the small win for what it is, and I agree. I'm very happy about that because now you'll be able to go to the store and, buy a suppressor, and even though you still have to fill out the paperwork and wait and probably pay some processing fee for, the places that do all that stuff, you'll save $200. Now, does that mean the suppressor companies are going to raise their cost? I guarantee you. Because a lot of places, they'll have the free tax stamp promotions where if a suppressor is X amount of dollars, they have it on sale for X amount of dollars minus $200. So you still pay the $200, you just get the suppressor for $200 less. But now I'm thinking they're not going to run those promotions anymore. And I guarantee you, you're going to see the suppressor companies raise their price if all this goes through and the tax goes to 0. But that's more of a commercial market kind of end user type of thing. But I have another prediction, and this is going to be the legal future of the NFA. There have been multiple, by the way, I am not a lawyer. I have never gone to law school. I am just using the knowledge that I have and what I think is logic and reason and how the law works to run these things through my head and just go, I think this is going to happen. So the NFA over the years has been upheld numerous times by the Supreme Court under Congress's authority to tax, meaning that because they have the authority to tax and various decisions have been made that says certain items do not fall under the protection of the Second Amendment, because Congress can tax, the NFA stands because the paperwork is legally a tax return. And that's what a lot of people don't understand, that when people are arrested or charged with violations of the NFA, you're not being charged with a gun crime. You're actually being charged with tax evasion. And that's one of the reasons why the penalty potentially could be so stiff, like was it $250,000 fine and 10 years in jail. It's not because it's a firearms violation. It's because it's a tax evasion violation. So now the question is going to be, if the Fifth Circuit, which they pulled back one of their decisions saying that the suppressors that are mentioned in law are not protected by the Second Amendment, they pulled that back and most likely are going to reissue that opinion saying they are protected by the Second Amendment. And if the tax is reduced to zero, then I'm going to say the rest of the NFA will be found unconstitutional, at least in circuits like the Fifth Circuit here in Texas and Louisiana. Because if you're not paying a tax, the paperwork, registration, and all that rigmarole no longer has any point to exist. Does that make any sense? And because it will be a nationwide issue, we won't have to fight these battles in the Ninth Circuit or the First Circuit, which are horrible with gun rights. You know, I think the First Circuit is like New England-ish, like Maine, I think. Ninth Circuit, of course, is California, Oregon, Washington, Utah, that area, the Hawaii and Alaska. And I know the Sixth Circuit's pretty bad too, which I think covers like Chicago. But all those anti-gun circuits, that's where all these battles are always being fought with, you know, and the anti-gun judges are always ruling on them. The Fifth Circuit's really good. Makes me think that there's going to be a case, if the tax goes to zero, people are going to say, now that it is no longer a taxing issue, Congress has not created a tax on these items, the rest of it no longer falls under the Internal Revenue Code. And it should be struck down. And I think this is going to be the next plan of attack. Now, do I think this is a smart way of attacking it? I actually do think it is. The problem is going to be the justices or the judges that rule on it, because certain things are so codified in law and have been for so long that it becomes tradition and precedent, even if it is blatantly unconstitutional. So I'm not going to make a prediction that these legal battles are going to end up with the NFA being repealed, because that's too far in the distance and I can't see all those variables. But as time goes on, maybe I can. But I do predict if the tax does go to zero, you will see gun rights groups, and I hope you see gun rights groups immediately say, now that there's no tax on these items, it no longer is a tax, therefore you cannot regulate them under the Internal Revenue Code. That's my prediction. And that's going to be a novel way of attacking the NFA, which might lead to a quicker victory in getting it all ruled unconstitutional. I can't say for sure, but my prediction is that's going to be the next legal battle, and people aren't talking about it. So, tell me what you think. Are you a legal scholar? Are you an attorney, a lawyer? And is what I'm saying making any sense? Because I think it does. Once again, the Supreme Court has ruled in Miller v. United States that Congress can regulate these items because they are using their power to tax. But if the tax goes away, can they still regulate them? Especially if some of the circuits begin to say these items are protected under the Second Amendment. I mean, let's just say the Fifth Circuit says the suppressors that were, or that they were dealing with in their case are protected by the Second Amendment. The tax is zero. Now you can say you can't regulate it under the Internal Revenue Code. So tell me your thoughts. I'm curious what you guys have to say. So that's what I got on the agenda tonight to talk about. Whatever happened to GunCon, I don't understand because I don't follow a lot of the big channels and all the drama because they're all fake to me. And number two, what do you think about the potential removal of the tax of certain NFA items to zero? And what do you think about the future of attacking the NFA on constitutional grounds when the tax becomes zero, because now it can't be regulated under the Internal Revenue Code? So, if you watch to the end of this very boring video where I just pontificate on the crazy things that come into my head, I want you to use the word, what's the word of the day? The word of the day is going to be revenue. Revenue is the word of the day because that is how the Supreme Court has upheld the NFA for so long, in that it is revenue generation, and it is within their constitutional authority, whether or not you agree with it. So, as always, thanks for watching.